In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Good morning, everyone. Welcome as we come again to our readings in the second Sunday of the Coptic month of Papa, which is actually, again, as we said last time, focusing from now on the grace of the only begotten Son. We talked about the love of God the Father, talking about the grace of the only begotten Son. We talked last time about His grace in calling us His children and purifying us. Come today to another beautiful readings and another passage of the Word of God of St. Luke, Gospel of St. Luke, and chapter 5 from 1 to 11. And we've heard this story many times, the story of the Lord going into the boat and coming and asking the disciples to go into the depth and go there and cast the nets, and then, the miracle of bringing everything and capturing more and more fish in order to continue to that. And then the Lord's word to them to transform them from just fishermen to fishermen, or fishers of men. And coming into all this and looking at our own life and looking at that journey from the shore to the depth, and what does it mean? And how does it look like? And why is that? We always ask that question, like, why does He want us to go to the deep? Why does He want us to go to the deep? And if you ask yourself that question, why does He want us to go to the deep? And we have too many answers. The deep is a stronger relationship. The deep is fruitful, as we've seen in the text. You capture, while actually that's against even the rules of fishing. But we have too many things that we always come to conclusion, and sometimes it's not really, doesn't really make sense. It's just a journey to go to the deep, and I don't know how to do that, and I don't know if I want to go to the deep or not, and the deep is dangerous, and the deep is not comfortable, and all those things. And you know what? You might as well just stand where we're at, right? And sometimes this is how we live, just being comfortable at the shore, just looking at things, and maybe looking at boats coming back and forth, but in order to have that desire to go to the deep, we need to ask ourselves, why going to that? When we go to serve in specifically in Nigeria every year, and after year, we've been there, in particular in Lagos since 22. So one year after another, you go in and you start really to see the change. You see the transformation. You see the depth of the transformation of people, from people who didn't know anything about the church, or some even of them didn't even know anything about Christ Himself as Christian. But then, as you go in year after year and trip after trip, you see there is depth, there is relationship that is being started. There is from every angle. And when I was contemplating about this more and more, you see, like, okay, if we ask ourselves, here we are year after year. Again, most of us probably heard this passage at least 10 times, maybe more than that. Again, we read this. Again, this is the second week of the Coptic month. At least if you've been in the church for the last 3 years, so that's 3 years, depending or away from your own readings, right? But then each time we ask and we read this question, we read this passage, we need to ask ourselves, how much deeper are we getting? How far are we going in the journey? Each time we hear this, like, okay, well, it's good, but not for me. But that journey, again, we have to start that journey. And come back again the question, why? Why we need to go to the depth? I was contemplating since the beginning of the week last week about actually what St. Paul said in Galatians 4:19. I'm going to read this to you and see how this links to what we're talking about here. St. Paul tells the Galatians in chapter 4, verse 19, "My little children, for whom I am again in the anguish of childbirth until Christ is formed in you." My children, whom I am again in the anguish of childbirth. Here he's calling himself, or having that analogy that he is what? He's a mother who's in labor. Right? I am in the anguish of childbirth until Christ is formed in you. Until Christ is formed in you. And I think that is the question of why we want to go to the depth. So that Christ is formed in each one of us. To reach that fullness, to reach that likeness. It's not just to have a strong relationship. It's not just to be better. It's not just to be able to face all the issues that we're having. And not just to have stronger faith. Okay, all those things are good. But the main point is to what? That Christ is formed in you. Have you thought about this before? That depth, unless we go to the depth, he is not going to be formed in us. We cannot be formed in us as we are standing on the shore. And this is the whole point of our relationship with him, is to become Christ-like, to the fullness of his likeness, the fullness of his likeness. And that is the journey. That is the journey. You see the same thing in the Pauline epistle today when St. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 4:11, For we who live are always being given over to death for Jesus' sake, so that the life of Jesus also may be manifested in our mortal flesh. The life will be what? Manifested until Christ is formed in us. If I ask myself now, that formation, we've been blessed this year with too many mothers who are pregnant, and too many babies are coming, right? And you look at that journey. You look at that journey, and you see that journey and from the conception till the birth. And you apply this to what we're talking about. And you see, this is a beautiful journey. But that journey needs two things. Needs being patient and needs focus and being nourished. Right? I was contemplating about this more and more and more. The idea of let Christ be fully formed in us. Right? If a mother is expecting, she doesn't come with the husband and say, okay, well, let's plan on this. First week we're going to go and work on the development of the mind of the baby. Right? And then week 2 we'll focus on the limbs. And week 3 we'll focus on, whatever that trimester is. Right? We don't do that. But what happens? We are joyful with the conception and we let the baby what? Grow. Let the baby formed. Is that how we look at our relationship with the Lord or not? Are we looking at that as that every time the conception, the seed that comes to the heart, and we are united with him, and let him what? Let him grow. Let him grow. Until Christ is formed in you. Until Christ is formed in you. Reading something about this journey, it says that journey is not a romantic feelings, nor an intellectual belief. It's not just, I believe that Christ is my Savior. Well, okay, does that really form Christ in our lives to the fullness? It's not just a feeling, a romantic feeling. Oh, here we are today, and we are in the church, and we are in the liturgy. Or, I had a beautiful prayer meeting, or a nice sermon that I've heard, and then I feel like I'm spiritually up high. It's not about romantic feelings. But what is it about? It's about the abiding in the living presence of Christ on a daily basis, about abiding in the living Christ on a daily basis. And this is what our beautiful church gives us every time we come for the communion. We abide in him in order to grow, in order for him to be what? Formed in us. Formed in us. And you know what? God is very patient with us in that process. As Paul is being here saying, I am in anguish, in pain, as the mother is giving birth. And again, you look at the story today, and you see, the Lord is telling them, go to the deep. And I can just, imagine how the journey is from where they were into going to the depth, to the deep. And maybe they didn't want to. Maybe, that means too much work. Means it's exposing to the dangers. But the Lord was very, very patient with them. Just go to the deep. Go to the deep. And sometimes we don't have that understanding that he is very patient with us. He's taken our hand. He is going to the depth and to the deep with us step by step. But we have to follow him. We have to get out of our laziness, out of our comfort, out of our just everything that's, I'm fine where I'm at. But then the question comes again, will he ever be formed in us to the fullness? It is about abiding in the living presence of Christ. How can we do this? 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 How can How can we take the journey from the shore to the depth? How can we allow him to be formed in us? How can he be that resurrection, that the light that comes out of the death? I was reading something for one of the 4th century fathers, Evagrius Pontius. He goes, when the mind wanders, when as we are walking into that, or as we are going to that journey to the deep, in order for him to be formed in us, the mind always wanders, right? The mind is all over the place. He says, when the mind wanders, reading, vigils, and prayers bring it to a standstill. Reading, prayer, and vigils bring it back to standstill. And that's something that we should do. As we are in that journey, as we are in labor till he is formed in us. Find out. Be practical. Be active. What is it? What kind of readings? What kind of vigil? What kind of prayer? Can I apply this to my life or not? Or here I am just satisfied when I come, once a week or twice a month. I'm coming to church and here I am and waiting for that. That growth is not going to happen. That growth is not going to happen till he is formed in us. Till he is formed in us. So in summary, again, as we are called to take the journey, as we are called to allow him to be completely formed in us as fullness of Christ, fullness of the likeness, what are the things that we are struggling with and preventing us from that journey? As I was looking at the readings today, I came at a couple of things. The first thing actually usually I start from the plea and go down, but I'm going to start from the Acts. Acts 14 and verse 26. The trip of St. Paul and going to Jerusalem again in order to meet with the church, in order to solve the issue of the Judaizing, those things. But verse 26, it says something kind of interesting that I was looking at. From there, they sailed to Antioch, where they had been commended to the grace of God for the work which they had completed. From there, they sailed to Antioch. What is Antioch? Antioch, which is where they, as we always know, where Christians where people were called Christians first. There was work that's in Antioch that was completed. And they went there. That church is the church that sent them out in order to go to Jerusalem in order to really find out, how to deal with an issue. The first point that came to my mind, causes of aborting that journey to the deep. Number one is sailing. Are we really sailing to the right direction or not? Are we sailing to Antioch where the work had been completed, or we're sailing aimlessly? Aimlessly. We just wake up in the morning and I have no idea what this day has, right? Too many things in my mind, too many obligations, too many challenges. I'm just gonna, go with the wind, sail with the wind, aimlessly. And that's why we struggle. Sailing to Antioch, they knew exactly where they went and where they want to go. And it says, the text is beautiful, where the grace of God for the work which they had completed. This is where they completed the work. Let's ask ourselves on a daily basis if we really want him to be fully formed in our heart. Where are we sailing to? Where are we sailing to? Aimlessly? Whatever? Or we're sailing to where the work as God has been completed? One of the beautiful things that we learned as we had a seminar about the Gospel of St. John a few weeks ago is he started his mission by telling his mother, my time has not come yet. The wedding of Cana of Galilee. And he finished the Gospel with what? When he said on the cross, and this is only John said it, it has been what? It is finished. It's filled. It's filled. It's finished. The work is done. Just go. Follow the blueprint. Follow the map to the depth. But you know what? We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. Sorry to say, again, here we are. Where is everyone? Right? Why did we come early? Why aren't we back again to Evacuus Pontius? No, if you really want to, be active. Fight. Fight. But then when you fight, you find the fullness. Find the beauty. Where are we sailing is the first one. The second thing, as I said, I'll go from the Acts up to the Pauline, is in the Catholic epistle, beautiful chapter and passage from St. James chapter 3. And verse 16, he talks about something that is very important, that really aborts that seed from being fully formed in our hearts. He talks about this. Verse 15, James 3, 15 and 16. This wisdom does not descend from above, but is earthly, sensual, demonic. And then verse 16, for where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. So as we've said, the first point is sailing. The second thing is seeking. Who are we seeking and what are we seeking? Is it self-seeking that leads to envy and every evil thing? Or we're seeking Him? Who are we seeking? Seeking Him to be fully formed in our life, in our hearts? Seeking that seed that was conceived at one point in our heart to be full, mature baby? And then full, mature person or not? Who are we seeking? Actually, the Church Father says, as Orthodox, we're not just seeking Him, we're seeking the Trinity. Look at this and find this and understand this, how we can seek the Trinity. Why seeking the Trinity? I shared this with you for those who were with us during the salt dinner. Because the Father is the causative, the Son is the creator, and the Trinity is the purifying. When we seek, let's not just say, oh, Jesus, like, no, we need to understand. That's why we're Orthodox. Seeking the Trinity, because without that, we're not going to have that full formation of Him in our hearts. Seek the Father, because He is the source of everything. Seek the Son, because He's the creator. By the Word, He said, let there be light. Seek the Holy Spirit. By Him, we will be purified and sanctified and unified with Him. Who are we seeking? Sailing, seeking, and finally, the third and last S is in the Pauline epistle today, St. Paul, when he talks in 2 Corinthians, a beautiful passage also about how we're supposed to be spreading grace. 2 Corinthians 4 and verse 15. After he says that, you know what, we are so everything, right? He goes that always carrying about in the body the dying of the Lord, that the life of Jesus always may be manifest. So then death is working, but life is in us. And then in verse 15 it says, for all things are for your sakes, that grace having spread through the many may cause thanksgiving. That grace having what? Spread through the many. Are we spreading? As we are journeying to the depth, are we spreading the grace? Or what are we spreading? What are we spreading? Are we spreading fear and anxiety and envy and division? Or are we spreading grace? Starting from, I always say, starting from the very, very small circle, from the family, from the spouses, from the husband and wife, from the parents and the children, from the children and their parents. Are we spreading grace or not? How can He be fully formed in our hearts if we are not spreading grace? Taking from Him and spreading. Taking from Him and spreading. And that's what happened. That's what happened. And you see this very, very, very well manifested in the miracle today. That's why the Lord told them what? No more you are going to be fishermen, but you're going to be what? Fisher of men. That's spreading the grace. Spreading the grace to the whole world. That's what happened. When we want to go to the depth again, it's a journey in order to have Him fully formed in our hearts, in our life. That we become fully Christ-like. But we need to ask ourselves that question again. Each time we read this text, let's make it a habit. You know, again, you know now it's the second week of the Coptic month, again towards the end of October every year. Mark your calendar and come back again next year and say, you know what, am I going to the deep or not? Where I'm at from last year? Where I'm at from the year before? Are we journeying together to the deep? Are we sailing towards the completion? Are we seeking the Trinity? Are we spreading grace or not? Otherwise, we'll just be in and out, aimlessly seeking ourselves and spreading every bad thing. But that's not our goal. Our goal to become Christ-like, the fullness. As we come and take Him, unite with Him, and then we go out again, sailing towards Him, seeking Him, the Trinity, and spreading Him to everybody else. To Him the glory now and forever, to the ages of all ages. Amen.